weekly release kickoff call. I'm Anup Dawar, the Vice President of Product Management at GitLab. And today we will kick off release 13.2 planned for July 22nd, 2020. 4 of our product leaders will cover the updates in 4 sections. We'll start off with Secure and Defend with David, followed by Enablement led by Josh, then Dev with Eric, and finally Kenny will bring us home with Ops. I'd like to remind you that we have a kickoff page on GitLab website at about.gitlab.com/direction/kickoff. If you would like to follow along or use it as a reference later, you'll find informative videos and links to issues of all planned functionality. We invite everyone to contribute by providing your inputs and feedback on the issue threads. Keep in mind that we do plan ambitiously, and some of the things we talk about here may not make it into 13.2, although we do intend to ship them. Therefore, our plans are dynamic and may change. With that, I'd like to hand it over to David. Take it away, David.
Thank you very much, Anup. Let me get my screen shared here. So there's a lot of items that are going on today with Secure and Defend. I highly recommend you watch the videos that the team has provided. They've done a very good job going through their areas of focus. Kind of get us kicked off here. We've been focusing on one central theme for the last several releases, and it'll continue with this release. That's application security testing leadership. And we're focusing on bringing our 3 primary categories of SAST, DAST, and dependency scanning to complete, introducing fuzz testing and bringing that to viable maturity. And with that, I just want to highlight that last week we announced 2 acquisitions. One of Fuzzit, focused on coverage guided or being able to fuzz through the source code based fuzzing, as well as PeachTech, who offers both DAST API and API fuzzing, as well as protocol fuzzing. And with 13.2, we're actually going to be giving you a preview of what is coming with coverage guided fuzzing. And to kind of walk through the 2 main items, first, we are rolling out the ability to have a fuzzing CLI so our pipeline can actually kick off the fuzz tests. And with that, we'll also provide a YAML configuration file that you can include. That way you can begin your coverage guided fuzzing. The results themselves will not be in 13.1 be available within the vulnerability management components, including the merge request widget, pipeline report, and on the dashboard. However, we're going to make them available to be downloaded as raw files so you can review them. Within the configuration spot, you'll begin to see fuzzing showing up. And again, primarily the coverage guided fuzzing. And then on your pipeline report for security, you'll see there'll be a button that says fuzzing results. And from there, you can click that and download all the raw output from the engine and see the results the engine has found. The next big thing I wanted to highlight for you is that the Threat Insights team and the vulnerability management category moved from Defend over to Secure. And that's because the focus of the vulnerability management category today has been helping you triage the security findings the Secure categories find. And there's 2 major items that are coming out in 13.2. The first is extending what you can see on the project level dashboard. And there's some really great new data that's being pulled out so you can see it directly from that view. And this will be an ongoing project. As you can see, there's multiple steps here. But the first one I'll highlight for you are 2 new columns that you'll see on that project dashboard. The first is the scanner column. And on there, you'll see not only just the category, but the scanner that found the result. This is really important when you're dealing with not only a GitLab scanner, say in this example using our SAST, but then you're also using a scanner from a third party and leveraging our third-party integrations. And then here you can see on this example, white source is listed as the scanner. This is the beginning of us being able to deduplicate results and allow you to see just the finding you need and not have multiple entries, one for each scanner type. Again, we're also adding a column for identifier. This will also help with our deduplication efforts. And here you can see primarily CVIDs. That's usually the identifier for vulnerability. But we'll also have the proprietary exposed identifiers as well, as in this example, HackerOne, as well as things like CWEs for enumerating common weaknesses. The final thing I want to highlight for you here, you can see it on this finding here for SAST. There's an entry that says line and the line number. So again, directly from the dashboard, you're able to jump in and begin resolving that issue. Also from the scanner dropdown, you'll also see the scan types as you have before, but also the scanner that's related. So that way you can drill into specific scanner results from the dashboard. The other item is we're extending how you can attach your issues to the vulnerabilities that are found. With 13.0 and standalone vulnerabilities are now treated as a first-class item in our product. That includes looking like they are an issue. And again, you see the information we're now exposing, but we have moved the create issue down to the bottom, and we've added an add issue.
Mod, did you do that?
Okay. From there, you'll click add issue, and you can see the ability to add in related issues. And of course, just like on the view that you have on issues, we have the related issues here on the standalone vulnerability, and you can see the ones that have been related as well as created. Next, to kind of go into static analysis, focusing again on bringing static analysis and SAS to a complete maturity. We've talked about the expansion of the UI. So off the configuration, you'll have manage. I don't want to highlight for you because we've walked through this previously, is it will now open up the merge request for you to merge in your configuration changes. That way you don't have to manually figure out how to take the UI changes, bring them over, and put them back into your YAML file. It'll auto-create that merge request for you to approve. Finally, on the stack analysis front, we're continuing our open source stewardship. And with 13.1, we're bringing Brakeman, our Rails scanner, down to core. Here we're bringing ESLint down to core on 13.2. Next, for dynamic analysis, there's a lot of work on making it easier to manage your profiles. And with that, we're launching a profile library off the on-demand scan menu. And what that looks like here, as you can see again, with 13.2, the on-demand scans will be available. You'll see which ones are running. And again, that runs without there being a merge request or a commit. This is rescanning, but there's the option to create a profile. And from that, you can see we'll have the site profiles where you can define different paths or different sites that are part of this project you want to be able to scan. You'll see whether or not we've actually verified that they're yours and you can actually scan them. So you're not inadvertently scanning someone else's application. And then also profile scan types. So that way you can actually define what is a quick run for you, an active run, and so forth. On the composition analysis side, the main focus I'd like to highlight is our continued effort for offline support. This is something we shipped as minimal a couple of releases ago. The main item left was license compliance, and we are working on getting those addressed as well. Finally, to wrap this up with Defend. Defend has two items within the container security section that is focused on policy management. They're both labeled as stretch, but I wanted to highlight them for you. First, we're working on taking what we did in earlier releases on the threat monitoring page and extending what you can do. So again, you can see your policies under the policies tab on threat monitoring and be able to create your policy, but now you can actually edit that and you get a nice point and click GUI. You could be able to name it, come in and say create roles, select the type of traffic, where you want it to go. Say we want to limit this to specific IP address and maybe a specific port, and we're focused on HTTP. And you can see it's actually showing you the role in English format. If you want, you can always still grab the YAML, or if you just want to view what's being generated by the YAML, what YAML is being generated by the policy editor, you can see that there in line. Again, a lot of exciting things going on with Secure and Defend. Please check out the videos. And with that, I'll hand it back to Anoop.
All right, take it away, Josh.
Thanks, Anoop, and thanks, David. That's some really exciting changes there in the Secure and Defend section. Go ahead and get my browser shared, and we'll talk about enablement. So like David, we have a lot of really interesting things. So please do check out the kickoff videos for each of our groups. I'm not going to have time to cover everything here in this section, but instead we'll focus on the highlights. And a lot of them in this release focus around primarily performance and availability, but also we're continuing, of course, to improve some features as well. So let's get going and talk about the database of the GitLab instance, which is super interesting. At least we find it interesting. The first thing we're doing here is we want to add support for Postgres 12. We launched a requirement for Postgres 11 in 13.0 last month, and we're working to support Postgres 12 here in this release as an opt-in fashion for new customers. So we're taking a very iterative approach here to add support for PG 12. But it brings a number of benefits. The first, of course, is the engine is much faster. And so by upgrading to this, you can simply get your instance to move more quickly and get better responsiveness. But also there are some distributions out there that didn't have a package for PG 11. And so adding support for this early will continue to allow these customers to upgrade to GitLab on PG12 with their package manager of choice. So we're very excited about that. And along with PG12 is also the switch over from Rep Manager over to Patroni. These tools are a key part of the multi-node Postgres service that we offer, and Patroni is required to support Postgres 12. Rep Manager 3 does not, and so it's very important. There's also a number of benefits as well. We think it's more reliable than Rep Manager 3, and it's also some quality of life improvements for our administrators in the sense that previously for Rep Manager 3, when a PG node went down and you tried to bring it back into the cluster, that was a manual effort to undertake. With Patroni, that's automated, and so we're reducing the maintenance overhead of running GitLab, which is always one of our goals, to make that easier for all of our admins. So we're very excited about this. And the other key benefit here, of course, is that GitLab.com is running Patroni currently, and we'll be working to make sure that all of our self-managed instances look and behave and are running as much as possible like GitLab.com, which is always one of our goals. And so that's a great benefit of this migration as well. Continuing on the database theme, we'll be working to partition the first table in the GitLab database. We have picked the audit events table as it is growing quite quickly, as you imagine, as it logs everything happening on the instance, but also the access patterns are pretty standardized. And so we're working to go ahead and roll out the partitioning with this release. And as part of this, we're working on building a lot of the foundation for how a partition table is going forward, to make sure that we can continue to offer the scalability and performance improvements across a wide variety of these tables. And so we're laying that foundation here in this release with this particular table. Continuing on the theme of databases, we're also working to make the re-indexing automatic for our GitLab instances. Right now, you can run GitLab PG repack manually, and that can help you to clean up some of your bloated indexes. Right now on GitLab.com, we have around 1 terabyte of index bloat, and so that can give you some indication of kind of the challenge and the benefit you can see by doing this. So the key benefit here is making it automatic, because they can run it more often. It's more hands-free, but also some of our self-managed users might not be aware that they should do this, and so this can make that task automatic and remove the need to continue to kind of run this. And so hopefully more of our instances will receive the benefits of re-indexing these indexes of the performance and space reductions on their database. So shifting gears a little bit away from the database here and talking more about performance in general and operational metrics in general, we've been working hard on improving those aspects within Enablement, and we want to have better insight into how the instances are performing at a very high level. And this will allow us to better target and prioritize our improvements, and also identify potential areas that might be unique to some self-managed instances that we don't see on GitLab.com. And we've been using GitLab.com for a majority of our insights here to date, but we want to try and expand that and make sure we have improvements for everyone, in particular some unique cases that we might not be seeing on GitLab.com. So we're looking forward to that telemetry coming back to help us better target improvements. That said, we are of course working on improvements in general as well. One of the ones is the controller that actually renders files. And so, for example, when you go to the project overview page, we'll oftentimes show a markdown file. If you look on a markdown file anywhere else in the UI, the same code still runs, and it hasn't been very fast. We looked into it, and it looks like a lot of the time it takes is actually done in XML parsing, and a lot of it. We've done some analysis here and some improvements in caching, and you can see we've actually seen some dramatic improvements already, and this will land in 13.2. In particular, the XML parsing time has gone down for this particular file from 12 seconds down to half a second, which is a significant reduction in the overall time it takes to load this file. Now, this file is a kind of a stress test, and so I don't want to give it the attention that it's 40 seconds to load all files. Certainly not, but you can see here the size of improvement that we're launching here with this change. So we're very excited about that. We're also making some memory improvements here, primarily by preloading before we fork. And so we got to make sure we load as much as possible before we fork, and so that way this process can share as much memory as possible and continue to drive down our memory requirements for our application. So we're doing that for a Sidekick, as well as also Action Cable and the web processes. And then moving on to the feature improvements, we're continuing to improve on our disaster recovery. And the key change here is we are working to add additional file types. Package replication missed by just hours, and so it's already emerged, but it didn't make the cut for 13.1, so it will begin 13.2. But we did make that big change with the self-service framework we've been mentioning, And that has allowed us to go ahead and leverage that framework to add support for 3 new types of data, all in 13.2. We're doing that for external merge request diffs, Terraform state, and vulnerability export, which you can see again, that really increase in velocity for new data types by leveraging that framework. And we're also working on adding verification to the framework. And once we do that, all the data types that use the framework will get verification immediately. So really excited about that. And moving on to our last topic here, which is the advanced global search rollout. The key benefit here is that we will be rolling out advanced global search to all paid groups on GitLab.com by July 1. So even in a couple of days here, we've been able to show that we can run an increased velocity for indexing without impacting the GitLab.com service. And so by the current throughput we've been running through as far as the indexing process, we can get that done again in just a few days here. So very excited to let all of our users benefit from that service. And we're also making an improvement to global search here as well, in particular how we analyze code and index code. There are some delimiters which we don't do a good job of handling for certain languages, and that means that we sometimes miss results. And we're going through and improving those things, in particular some special characters in 13.2 to make sure we do a better job of indexing code and showing results to our users. So very excited about that as well. So that's the highlights for enablement. I'll pass it back to Anoop to take us from here.
Thank you, Josh. Let's move on to Eric.
All right, thanks everyone. I'm gonna talk through what's cooking for the dev section in 13.2. We've got some awesome stuff lined up. I've grouped our enhancements into 3 kind of big themes, and those themes are enterprise enhancements, easier collaboration and visibility, and deeper integrations. And so I'll just walk through each of those themes in order. So for enterprise enhancements, I've talked about this issue before, but I want to highlight it just one last time. We're going to provide the ability to prevent forking outside of a private group so that those customers that are using private groups and need their code and repositories to stay private can do so. And also so their users don't accidentally fork outside of the namespace where they shouldn't be forking to. And so really looking forward to this one and seeing this finally land in 13.2. We're also going to begin enhancing authentication for Git CLI calls. And so we're going to do this by enabling support for 2-factor auth when SSH Git activities are happening. And so you can see what this might look like here by entering a one-time password from an authenticator application. We also want to make it easier for admins to understand which of their credentials are expired. And so we're going to do this in both the SSH and personal access token credential inventory list by providing a status column or status indicator that highlights which of their team members' access tokens or SSH keys might be expired so that they can go and fix that issue with those particular users. Following on to our group compliance dashboard that we released a few months ago, we are also going to add the MR author onto that group dashboard. And the primary reason we want to do this is for separation of duties types of reporting. So we'll quickly add the MR author here. We already have the approver on this, and I would imagine we continue iterating here by highlighting these MRs that didn't adhere to separation of duty type auditability. And then our last issue that I want to highlight for enterprise enhancements is really a better backup strategy for really large repositories. We have a number of ways to back up repositories today, but they don't work very well for really large repositories and for those customers that have a ton of really large repositories. So there's a few workarounds here in this current issue, but really the things that we're going to be focused on in 13.2 are 1, parallelizing the backup process. Currently, it's a serial process and it can take a lot of time. And so if that process actually takes longer than your backup period, you can run into big problems where you're just always executing a backup, which is a really bad spot to be in. And the second thing we're going to do is to implement an incremental repository backup strategy so that once you've done your first backup, you're now only backing up the increment or what's changed. Which should really help a lot of our enterprise and larger instance users at GitLab. I don't have issues to show, but we also are going to continue, as always, working on Git.ly cluster by focusing on strong consistency as well as redistribution across all of the clusters. So moving on to the easier collaboration and visibility theme, I'm going to highlight some really, really cool stuff I'm very, very excited for. And the first is the launch of what we're calling iterations inside of GitLab. So iterations, if you're familiar with other planning tools, is what might be called externally as sprints. But this is essentially the ability to kind of separate your release or other milestone planning process from your software development lifecycle and sprint process. And so we'll now have the ability for issues to be attached to milestones as well as iterations. And then for the iteration page to actually show some really cool information like percentage complete, days remaining, burn up, burn down charts, as well as issue grouping so that you can see what are the issues that are attached to this particular iteration, who are those assigned to, and then what also are the merge requests in that particular iteration. So real excited for this. This is behind a feature flag in 13.1. And we'll continue making this better in 13.2 and then turning this on by default next release. We also want to make issue boards easier to work with, and we're going to do this by automatically adding default issue lists for new issue boards. And the reason we want to do this is because we think that GitLab is a great planning tool with its current capabilities, and that some of the unnecessary complexity of a lot of people's states and the workflows is probably slowing them down and making them not as efficient as possible. So we want to encourage simplicity and do this by providing default issue board lists that just provide a simple Kanban view and help our customers to work in that manner. Well, we're also going to continue working on something I announced last release, which is Epic swim lanes on issue boards. And so just a quick view of what this might look like is once you've got your board scope to the issues that you want on it, you group by epic, and it'll group them by the epics that they're attached to. And so a great MVC, really excited to see this one land, and I think it's great work by the team so far. We have a really great feature called Value Stream Analytics that helps people define, visualize, and then measure individual stages in their value stream. But the problem is you can only have one view for the group or the project. And so similar to issue boards, what we're going to do is allow you to create multiple value stream views so that you can capture a specific value stream view for your team or for your process or for your initiative, which will really help this feature be much more valuable to those users. For design management, we're going to make that feature a little bit more visible as well. So if you've used our design management feature, which recently came down to core, you can see that it's kind of a buried feature. You have to scroll about halfway down your issue, and then you have to click on this button just to find it. But really, those designs attached there should be front and center to the process and with respect to collaboration. And so what we're going to do is move this design section up kind of at the bottom of the issue description, which will help make those designs front and center so that everyone's looking at the latest designs all at once. And then lastly, for enhanced collaboration, I'm super excited about this one, is real-time feedback for editing GitLab CI YAML files in the web IDE. So if you're familiar or you've edited GitLab CI YAML files, you know that they can be complicated and they have a ton of parameters. You aren't always certain if what you've inputted is correct. And so we want to provide a better experience inside of GitLab, inside of the web IDE, to make editing those CI YAML files much better. So we'll be working on providing feedback if what you've written is a valid schema, and making the web IDE honestly the best place to actually configure and manage these CI.YAML files. So really excited to see cross collaboration here between multiple stages. And lastly, moving on to my last theme, deeper integrations. We've got some awesome stuff coming here. So I'll quickly walk through this. We are going to invest into an expanded Jira integration. And we have a ton of customers that use GitLab and use Jira, and we want to make that experience just a lot better. We already have a Jira integration. And so what we're going to do is iterate on that integration, and we're going to display Jira issues right inside of your GitLab instance. We're going to start here just by doing a simple display, and then we'll continue iterating by making these issues configurable and interactable by allowing you to edit them. But we're really excited for this, and excited to kind of just allow those customers that are using both Jira and GitLab to stay in the same application as they utilize the various pieces in GitLab, so that they can quickly see their Jira issues. Similarly, we have a same story for Confluence, and so we want to kind of iterate and test out and experiment on an MVC to load an external Confluence workspace into a GitLab instance. So this is potentially what it could look like, and we'll continue iterating here. And then lastly, my last issue for us is that I wanted to announce that we are planning on an official GitLab Figma plugin. This is a plugin that would be served via the Figma directory, but it's so important because it allows designers who are working primarily out of Figma to very, very simply, with a single click, upload their designs to GitLab issues via the design management feature that I already highlighted. So meeting designers where they are and then bringing them into GitLab. So really excited for that. Great work to the team. And as always, I just hit the highlights. And so please check out the rest of the kickoff page and the videos, and we'll see you next month. Over to Kenny.
Hey, thanks, Eric. My name is Kenny Johnson. I'm the Senior Director of Product Management covering the Ops section. Let me go ahead and share my screen. I wanted to highlight, I'll jump straight to one specific theme, and that is the theme of adopting the additional stages in the DevOps loop. And in the Ops section, we specifically focus on verify, release, package, monitor, and configure. And the reason why I want to highlight this is many of our customers come from source control, from using us as a source control platform, and we really want to show them the benefit of a single DevOps platform. And I want to highlight the features we're working on that enable the kind of more rapid and easier adoption of additional stages throughout the DevOps platform that is GitLab. So I'll start with verify. Verify is a critical one of moving from create to verify, and the critical component of adopting GitLab CI and verify tools is having a runner. And so there's a bunch of great work happening within the runner team to add what's a visual of a guided install for when installing a runner. So today you typically choose that you want to install a runner and jumps to our documentation. This kind of is guided. It's a more interactive version of our documentation that shows you exactly the steps you need to do to get started in installing a runner on the machine type of your choice, and then using that to run GitLab CI. We're also adding support in the runner for a very popular distribution, the IBM Z. So we're adding a first step of having a Docker image that can run in Linux on IBM Z that will unlock a number of customers who weren't able to utilize the power of integrated source control and CI because the runner wouldn't run where they needed it to. And then lastly for the runner, there's also work going on in 13.2 that will enable the better management of a fleet of runners. So this is a visual of the runner management page, which will allow you to see what types of projects are running jobs with those specific runners, any tags for those runners, and better manage multiple runner types that might be needed for your various projects to utilize GitLab CI. The next major jump is from verify to release, and I wanted to highlight a couple of things we're working on to improve the ability to start using GitLab for your continuous delivery or general release process. The way that many of our customers adopt GitLab release features is that there are a set of projects that are maybe more greenfield or newer projects, and they are utilizing continuous delivery patterns. And so we'll be adding in the progressive delivery group the ability to easily integrate with AWS ECS service. Previously, we've added an integration so that it's easy to get started deploying to ECS, but only when the target type was an EC2 virtual machine. We're going to be adding support for deploying to ECS where the target type of that ECS cluster is actually AWS Fargate containers. So that's really exciting for our AWS customers who are wanting to utilize that type. And then the next is a continued iteration on our feature flags. And so if you're familiar with feature flags, they're a really important component of enabling progressive delivery in organizations, especially for more container-based applications. But our previous feature flag capabilities did not allow you to control when rolling out the percentage, the experience of how that percentage was perceived. So it wasn't necessarily based on sessions, it was based on percentage based for the logged in users. This new flexible feature flag type for percentage rollout will allow you to choose what that percentage is based on, giving application managers more control over how they're rolling out feature flags. The other type of common use case for adopting our release features is actually for your kind of more traditional, maybe manually deployed projects that need more control over their release. And so I'm really excited that the team is going to be working on adding and the ability to read your vault variables directly in CI. This has been a lot of work coming. We've had previous releases where we've allowed you to interact more in a more integrated fashion with Vault directly in your CI YAML. But this is really kind of the culmination that allows you to directly reference your Vault variables in CI. And then lastly, many of the organizations that are adopting GitLab release features need to have release blackouts. And so we've previously announced the ability to define release blackouts in YAML definitions. We're going to be adding a UI to define when release jobs should or should not run, and having that be configurable directly in the UI. The last adoption phase that I really wanted to focus on was on monitor. And this is really important for the process of getting the actual feedback loop in DevOps. So after monitor, you go back into plan and you want to make sure that you're getting great feedback to improve your product. One of the things that has been kind of rapidly expanding within GitLab is the ability to integrate with your existing alert system and have those alerts show up in GitLab so that you can triage them. So I wanted to highlight that we'll be adding the ability to, when setting up that configuration, easily test if your alert endpoint is getting the information you need, to showcase more alert information like the metrics coming from the alerts and the logs right there in the alert detail, as well as adding integrations like PagerDuty as well as Opsgenie to more readily get your alerts and feedback loop back into GitLab. With that, those are the highlights from the ops section. I'll hand it back over to you, Anoop, to close this out.
Thank you, team. That's fantastic. 13.2 promises to be an amazing release. I can't wait to try it out. Thank you, everyone, for spending the time with us, and we'll see you next month. Bye.